Welcome to A Friend of Mine, a series of conversations with some incredible and inspiring women in business from regional and rural Australia. I'm Kimberly Finesse, your host and the founder and editor of Oak Magazine, and I cannot wait to introduce you to some amazing female entrepreneurs who will share with you their experience and knowledge of what it takes to start, grow and scale a successful business. So let me introduce you to a friend of mine. Celebrating National Ag Day, this episode features Ruby Canning from Mavstar Photography, who shares her deep passion for agriculture and her family's legacy of raising Simmental cattle. Growing up in a multicultural family with roots in both Malta and Canada, Ruby reflects on how her diverse background has enriched her perspective on agriculture. Her family's history in cattle farming is intertwined with her identity, and she emphasises the emotional connections that farmers have with their livestock, particularly through the story of Dakota, her cherished cow gifted by her late grandfather. Throughout the conversation, the significance of National Ag Day emerges as a platform for sharing stories from the farming community. Ruby passionately advocates for greater recognition of the farmers who feed the world and highlights the need for consumers to understand where their food comes from. She shares her experiences of photographing livestock for marketing campaigns, illustrating the importance of showcasing the hard work and dedication of farmers. Ruby's insights extend to the mental health challenges faced by those in ag, emphasising the necessity of fostering connections and conversations to support one another. Meet my friend, Ruby. Hello, Ruby, and happy National Ag Day.
Thank you, Kimberly. I know it's an exciting day that comes around every year, and I think as a farmer and in agriculture, it's a day that, I'm so excited about because it's a day that people actually, I think, acknowledge agriculture more and acknowledge where their food comes from and simply just thank the farmers that put it on their plate every single day for them.
Couldn't have said it better. Now, you're based in rural Victoria. I've known you for a little while through Oak and have obviously, just that online connection. It's what happens with Instagram. It's such a beautiful thing. But it's not just you that is a very familiar face when I think about Ruby. It's also Dakota. And I thought, could we just even start there? And could you just introduce Dakota to us and who that is to you?
Oh, actually, this has absolutely made my day because Dakota is my beloved 16-year-old cow that was a gift from my late grandfather in 2008. My grandparents have been breeding Simmental since the 1970s, and Dakota was one of my very first establishment females that started our Simmental stud, Mavstar Simmentals. She has been an absolute cornerstone of my life. We lost my grandfather in my early teens from a devastating battle with cancer, and Dakota continues to be one of those beautiful, cherished memories that I have of my late grandfather that continues to keep his legacy alive, and along with many of our other cows. But Dakota's very special. She has been in my life going on 17 years next year, and she's the matron of our herd, and I'm pretty sure I adore her like I adore my family. It's one of those things, growing up in agriculture and growing up with livestock and pets and animals and being in those rural communities, quite often our livestock are our family, and people that haven't had that upbringing don't understand that. But to me, Dakota's family. I absolutely adore her, and it's just been such a blessing that we've shared so many years together. I showed Dakota when I was younger, and she's just continued on to be the most beautiful cow at home. And absolutely adore her so much. And she is she is very well known on my social media pages. I've adored her for as long as I can remember, and she's truly so special to me and my family.
I'll share some photos from your socials with the podcast as well so that people can see her because she is big and beautiful.
I think it's so special, people just have a connection with what I share on social media about life on the land, and it's so special that Dakota is part of that because she's been, such a part of my life. And my pa, he adored her so much, and I adored him, and I miss him every single day. But having Dakota there is just a everyday reminder of the legacy he built, for his love for the Simmental cattle and the love that he passed on to both myself and all of my family for the love of cattle.
Oh, grandparents, I can't talk about them without getting emotional. They have such a special part in our lives.
Oh, absolutely.
Could you just take us back a little bit, Ruby, and share a little bit about your background and how you've become involved in agriculture?
My agriculture background is very diverse, and I think, if anything, that has just been such a wonderful upbringing in itself. My mum's parents, they migrated from Malta, so their background is very different to my dad's family. My dad is Canadian, and his family are generational ranchers in Manitoba, Canada. So naturally, growing up, I had a very multicultural background. My mum speaks fluent Maltese, so growing up, we were also exposed to another language. We were exposed to agriculture on a sense that it had so many inputs of learnings and values. And I think, if anything, what I gained the most from my growing up in agriculture was actually the importance of family values. My grandparents, especially my grandfather, he worked so hard to build a cattle stud. Being a migrant, he worked on the wharf for many years, and then he actually was able to retire early, buy a farm, and that was the start of Maverick Simmentals. So that was really special from that side. And then my dad had a really strong agriculture upbringing in Canada as well. He raised his own cattle there with his parents. There was a family ranch there as well. So naturally, we grew up loving agriculture, both my brother and I. We were raised with very humble parents. Both my parents are very hardworking individuals, and we were just so blessed that we were raised by beautiful families, and we learned to love the people around us and our family and our cattle and our livestock. And to me, that's just what agriculture is, I think, in a sense. Education wise, I finished high school at Ballarat Grammar. I did my last 3 years there. Was really fortunate, had some wonderful scholarships to attend there, incredible teachers, and there was just so many opportunities in agriculture that I wanted to pursue. I started a degree at Lincoln University in New Zealand. I unfortunately was in a really bad car accident my first summer home. So after breaking my back and having severe nerve damage, I couldn't actually return to New Zealand, which was really sad. But I did complete a degree in Armidale in New South Wales, Bachelor of Business with a marketing major, which just allowed me to really get the basis of my own business as well. It's actually where I met my fiance, so that was always a wonderful move back to Australia for university, despite the consequences that led me to changing unis. So going forward a few years, I ended up being really fortunate back at the start of this year to transfer full-time into my rural photography business, Mavstar Photography. So I work very closely with a lot of beef cattle producers, predominantly, photographing and videoing their cattle for upcoming sales, marketing campaigns. So anything in regards to stud cattle marketing and livestock is my deepest passion. And then on the side, my fiance and I bought a house a couple of years ago in beautiful Dunkeld. So I think growing up in agriculture, we experienced it all. I've travelled to Canada and America multiple times. I had a wonderful photography internship in the States a few years back. Thomas and I actually just got back from the World Simmental Congress in Canada, and I look at all these opportunities that we've been so grateful with, and I wouldn't be where I am today without my diverse background in agriculture. And I think there's so many opportunities for that.
Oh my gosh, there's so many points there. First of all, just in case our listeners don't know where Dunkeld is, I mean, you have the most incredible background as the Grampians, don't you?
Oh, we are so blessed. And I think especially it's such a beautiful area. It's a hub for cattle production. There's so many sheep enterprises around. There's cattle enterprises around. It's just such a beautiful rural community as well. The people we have in our community are so beautiful. Hamilton's not too far down the road, and I know the time of the year I always get so excited for is Weaner Sale Week. There's cattle buyers and there's cattle sellers coming from all corners of the country, and it brings them to our beautiful area in the Western District, and it's so lovely.
Yeah, it's lovely whether it's a girls' weekend, a couple, or a family, and just to explore those beautiful ranges as well. And one of the things when you were talking about being a photographer and photographing all the livestock, is that a really male dominated industry? And if so, how have they come to accept you?
I think what I do and the people I work with and the livestock I get to work with, every single day that I'm on a property or I'm photographing cattle, these clients of mine are putting their money making time of the year in my hands to ensure that, I capture their livestock to the best of my ability that shows off every possible strength of that animal. And I think, if anything, there was never a time that I felt left out because I was young or I was just starting. I think what I was so blessed with was my upbringing in the beef industry, and along with being raised by incredible parents that had such a strong network of people and people that cherish them as people as well. And in agriculture, we are so grateful that it's a relationship. We work with clients, we work with breeders, we work with stud operations. And to me, it's all about building relationships. And I think one thing that really allowed my business to flourish was I created relationships with people. I allowed them to trust my expertise in raising beef cattle my whole life, and also being a beef cattle judge around Australia as well. So within my business, I've just been so fortunate that it's not a new industry for me. It's an area that I've grown up with my whole life. And also raising my own cattle with my family has just been such a blessing as well, to build my own photography business and the brand that goes with that as well.
Speaking of photography, how did you get into that? How did you discover that you have a talent behind the lens?
I reckon I was about 11 or 12 that I got my first camera. We had a dear family friend that I always loved playing with his camera and looking at camera settings and taking some photos. And that led to getting a camera for one of my early teen birthdays. And the rest is history. We lost my grandfather in my early teens, and I just remember that some of my earliest memories with him was taking photos of cattle. He was selling some bulls to China for breeding, so they were part of the live export. And I remember that we had these little cameras, and he had this big box of a computer, and we were out there taking photos of these bulls that were being sold to China. And they had to meet the certain specifications for color and conformation and everything like that. And I just remember being with Pa and taking these photos of these cattle. And I was so young, but I remember it like yesterday. And that was some of my earliest memories I had with taking photos and just loving cameras and sending photos to people. And it was so early on. And I look back now and I realized how far ahead my grandfather was for the times, and also for his age as well. So that was some of my really early times with photos. And another really important time that, I remembered taking photos was actually the last harvest that my grandfather was preparing for. And we were sowing crops, and he wanted to be out there in the tractor sowing, and I had this camera with me, and I took photos of him with my father and my uncle and my brother, and there was a little Jack Russell dog running through the dirt as well. And some of those photos I will cherish forever. They mean the world to me because they're some of the last photos I have with my grandfather. And when people ask me why I love photography so much and why I do it, it's because of those reasons. It's, for me, the family photography. Sometimes those photos, they're the last photos you're going to have with your loved ones, or they're the first photos that are going to capture a milestone. And it's, yes, my business has two sides of it. There's the livestock side, and then there's also the family side. But those family photos that I've got with my grandfather are photos I'll cherish forever. And being able to capture that for another family, or capture those family photos that allow those families to have cherished moments on the wall of milestones, of childbirths, of children growing up of those beautiful family moments are truly so precious.
They really are. And like, I know that I don't have family photos near enough of what I should. Now, we are talking about National Ag Day. What does it mean to you personally and to your community, whether that is where you live or the industry that you work in?
That is such a broad question because there are so many facets to agriculture that everyone's working in a different area or everyone's got a different career goal in agriculture that within my circle particularly. But I think if anything, National Ag Day to me means sharing our stories. It's sharing those stories of farmers that work the land every single day. And to me, it's about sharing the why we do it. It's why we're farmers. It's why we're passionate about feeding the globe and contributing to those food chains and ensuring food is on the plate for millions of people around the world, not just Australia. My dad put it perfectly at our engagement party recently. He said there's so many different families out here. There's families from many different backgrounds of our upbringings and our friendship groups. But if anything, agriculture is able to bring those people together. We put food on the plate of every demographic group in Australia, whether or not you're rich or you're poor or where you're from. And I think people need to learn more about the farmers that are putting that food on the plates for our consumers. They need to understand why they should be supporting the local butcher shops and why they should be supporting those little farm stalls, of these beautiful organic and efficiently produced produce. They're the stories that we need to be capturing. National Ag Day it's so important. It's about those family connections to the land. It's about why we do what we do. Farming isn't all glamorous. We rely on the rain. We rely on the climate. We rely on so many things that are out of our control. To be able to produce crops, to be able to produce strong produce year after year. But being beef cattle producers, there is nothing more beautiful than knowing that we are raising clean, healthy produce for our consumers. And I do think people need to learn where their food comes from. They need to learn that the cheapest option is not always the best option for your health and for your long-term health benefits. And whether or not you're in agriculture or not, simply just have respect for where your food comes from. Milk doesn't just come off the shelf and your steak doesn't just show up on your plate. There is a background to everything, and it's because of farmers that you're fed every single day, whether or not you're eating Wheat Bix or a jug of milk. Farmers are putting that on your plate.
And if you don't know where it comes from, educate yourself so that you can pass that down. But it's probably up to us too to probably use our platforms more to share those stories, isn't it? How would you encourage more young people to pursue careers in ag?
I think I don't know, it's one of those things that it's funny. Growing up, my brother and I were polar opposite. I was an absolute school nerd and I wanted to get that degree and get all those top grades and do really well academically. And then my brother is the polar opposite on that. He loves school, but he always loved the more hands-on side of agriculture. And every harvest, he wanted to be driving harvesters and being involved in agriculture. And I think, if anything, that showed me that it doesn't matter what your own personal goals are. If you love agriculture, you simply love agriculture. Jacob is on a property and he's about to be driving harvesters for cropping season. He's so passionate about it. Every sowing season, he's telling us what's getting sown and sharing and learning. And I think just if you want to get into agriculture, you've got to start somewhere. You've got to have a bit of a drive in you to be part of the bigger picture. So I think, if anything, whether or not you're from an academic background like I was, or you're from the more hands-on side of it like my brother is, you've just got to have that bit of drive in you and that bit of passion to actually go and ask those questions and learn a bit more. And I think, if anything, like we've been so fortunate that we've traveled heaps and we've met heaps of people. Simply start a conversation with someone. I think so many young people are too drawn to their phones because that's where social media is. And I love social media. I think it's a powerful tool. But whenever we're in a group of people, and I've always got to, I've always been so proud of my little brother for this, because every time we were in a new group of people, of farmers particularly, he'd go up to someone he didn't know and shake his hand and introduce himself and say good day. And I think if anything, that's what I want to encourage more people to do. Go out there, meet some people face to face and learn about what they do and start that conversation about agriculture.
Yeah, such good advice. I could actually talk to you for a little bit longer, to be honest, and do probably needed an extended interview rather than a short ag day one, I'm deciding. I know we haven't given you enough time to probably delve into it enough, but going back, Ruby, to New Zealand and that accident, I mean, is there any synergies, any sliding door moments, any regret?
I think, if anything, it was a real eye opener to the career that I wanted to have with my photography business. I remember my mum was my carer for 12 weeks. I could hardly move after my car accident. And I just remember my mum has always been the most positive, warming lady that I've ever had the blessing of having in my life. And not only is she an incredible mother, but she got me through some of those darkest days of my life during recovery. And I just remember taking photos of our beloved cows was some of the first things I did when I regained some movement and I could actually get around a little bit. And I just remember I was like, oh, this brings me so much joy and this brings me so much warmth that I'd nearly forgotten that I was in a back brace and I could hardly move. And I remain to have that strong feeling when I'm photographing that it just brings me so much joy, and it just makes me realize how truly grateful I am that I've been able to make a career out of doing what I love the most, is working with livestock and taking photos and working in agriculture. And I love the life I live. That's the summary. I'm so grateful for agriculture. I'm so grateful for our family ties and our parents and our siblings and just agriculture in general.
Oh, honestly, I just have goosebumps. Your family must be so proud of you, Ruby. And I think that energy and vivaciousness for life just actually comes out. Like, I obviously can see you on the screen as we're recording this. So I can see it come out in your facial expressions and all of that. And I hope that our listeners can hear it in your voice and obviously see that in your work. You are just incredible in what you're doing. To wrap us up, what message would you like to share with Australians about supporting and understanding agriculture?
Agriculture is such a broad industry. From what we've chatted about today, I've really highlighted on those family ties to agriculture, and also why I'm so passionate about agriculture. And being a beef cattle producer, my family and I own and operate Mavstar and we breed cattle every year, we sell cattle every year, we show cattle every year. And I just love the beef industry component of agriculture as well as the broader industry. And I think, if anything, one thing I just want to have as a leaving message about National Agriculture Day is we are all entwined in agriculture. It doesn't matter if you're in the beef scene, in the sheep scene, in the tractor driving area. It's all about agriculture. It's about putting that food on the plate for those people. It's about that next generation of sustainable produce and learning about where your food comes from. And I encourage you all to simply thank a farmer for your meal. Thank a farmer for stewarding the land to ensure there's healthy soil and there's growth for the following year, and the cattle are well nourished and the sheep are well nourished. And going back to those basics of driving along the road and taking in the scenes of agriculture. It's a powerful industry, and without agriculture, I don't know where our world would be. So I simply just encourage people to have those conversations, learn where their food comes from, and also chat to your local farmers. They are incredible people. Get off your phones when you're in a group of farmers or in a local grocery shop or anywhere, and just have those conversations. Have a chat. People, I know I love a chat. but other farmers love a chat too. So
They do. They are never short of a word and love to have a chat, so make sure you have time. But I think you're right. They are so approachable, farmers, and would love to
definitely.
share with you what's happening in their industry at the moment. And it might just be simple as asking, what type of sheep are they, or what crop do you have there, or
Yeah.
what do you use your sheep for? Because not we've talked a lot about food on a plate, but obviously agriculture is also the things that we wear.
Yeah, definitely. And, and I think that, that simple question of goes back to such again, a broader topic of farmer mental health and asking people how they're going, because farmers naturally don't share too much about their own emotions, but sometimes all you need to do is ask a farmer how they're going, or, oh, what's been the highlight of your day? Like, how's the crops going? Sometimes that's enough to make them feel really cared about. And to me, mental well-being and is is another facet of agriculture that we need to raise more awareness about, because quite often farmers are those people that are sitting on the harvester multiple hours a day by themselves. So we need to be asking our farmers as well how they're going. So yeah, that's another message I'd just like to add for National Ag Day, is asking our farmers how they're going and wish them a beautiful warm day.
Thank you so much, Ruby. I think there are so many things just in your interview that we can really take from and pull out. And I wish we had more time to get some more guests in and have more of a round table next time of a podcast. And, when you talk about mental health, there is actually, I know there are women in that industry that support farmer mental health. So there's that side of it. There is the fibre. There's so much, isn't there? Ag is so big. I don't think one day is enough to ever
100%.
cover what the ag industry is. So thank you so much for sharing a little bit of your world with us. And yeah, look forward to seeing Dakota on your gram a little bit more.
Absolutely. Oh, Kimberly, thank you so much. It's been so wonderful to have a chat with you, and such a pleasure as well. So thank you so much.
Now, before you take off with all that inspiration and knowledge, we'd love for you to leave a review on our podcast so that we can continue to amplify women's voices in the media. And if you have any questions, we'd like to celebrate a win, you can always connect with us on Facebook and Instagram at Oak Magazine AU. I'm so glad we've met and that now you know a friend of mine.